Hello and welcome to After Effects. This is a basic tutorial for people who have never seen the program before. And when you first open this program, it's admittedly kind of scary. There's a lot of gray windows and things, and we'll soon get familiar with them. I want to start out with a folder on my desktop. I've called it AFX for After Effects, and I'll give you the download link in the comments to the videos. But I have an AI file, an Illustrator file, a Photoshop PSD file, a JPEG, an MOV file, Garden of the Gods.jpg, another JPEG, an MP3 file, and a PNG file that are transparent. And what I want to show you first is how do we import these various types of assets into After Effects. Obviously, we can, when we're compositing video, bring in a lot of different types of files, including other videos. So I'm going to start here in the After Effects file menu, and I'm going to hit Import Multiple Files. And let's go to the desktop and view by name. Here's my After Effects folder. Now, some of these are just flat files. So I'm going to import by command clicking, either one, everything that's static. The PSD has layers and the AI file have layers. So I'm going to import them separately because there are a couple of tricks that I'd like to show you. Let me cancel, and I'm going to open up, well, I'll spare you that. The After Effects file has named layers, and the PSD file also has named layers. And you can see that these images and the audio file have showed up here. Let's do another one. I'm going to import first the Illustrator file, and I've got some choices here. If I import this as footage, these are all footage items, and I just put merged layers, what happens is I get the one After Effects file, and you can see that the vector objects are there, but they're all connected. I've lost my named layers. I'm going to delete this, and instead I'm going to say Import File, After Effects, but I'm going to choose Composition on Layer Size so that each layer will be cropped. And now what you'll see is I've got a composition. We'll talk about what compositions are in a minute. But I have if I double click them, you can see my layers. Oops. And here they are. And they're vectors so that I can actually use as vectors. So I'm not going to need the composition itself. That's kind of like a group that holds them. But I'm going to keep these layers from this afx.ai file. And I'm going to do the same thing with the PSD file. I'm going to import the file, afx.psd. I'm going to import this as composition, retain layer sizes, and if you forget to check that, it's going to give you, well, it does give you editable layer styles, or I can choose to merge them all together. I'm going to keep them editable. I'm going to hit OK, and what you'll see is now here's the composition, but that the different objects in it, the different layers in that composition, there are two of them, are separate. And if I look in the folders, I can keep them separate. So I'm going to get rid of this composition and keep the rest of these things. Now, we haven't talked about what compositions are, and compositions are the movies themselves. They are the timelines. A little bit like a movie clip in Flash, but everything is linear, meaning it starts at the beginning and plays to the end. There's no pauses and there's no interactivity. We're just making video. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a new composition, and I'm going to use this style, the same 872 by 486 that comes out of when you export to out of Illustrator, and I'll show you that in another video. I'm just going to leave this as composition 1. Now, we've got the duration here, and you'll see 4 numbers: hours, minutes, seconds, frames. We've got 30 frames per second. Square pixels is what we use for editing video, digital video on the computer screen. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to make this video 15 seconds long, so I'm going to set that to 0. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, 0 frames. This is a demo. I'm not going to do a long video. And then we get our stage. Now, I've got the white background. I can always go to the composition settings, and if I want a black background, all I have to do is click. So I can control the background. I can adjust the time and the size and the resolution and all of that stuff. Now, for my first composition, what I'm going to do is take the 3 JPEGs, and I want to create a fade. I've got 15 seconds, so let's take the first one, Garden of the Gods, and you'll notice it's a little bit small. If I open this up, I've got transform controls, scale, or I can close it up. If you can remember the S key for scale, you'll get only that one. And by dragging, and I can move this. What I'm actually do is I'm gonna go to about let's go to 106. Okay. Now here I have. It's not a very exciting movie, but I've got this picture of the red rocks in the Garden of Gods in Colorado. And I want this picture to last for 5 seconds, and by the time we get to 6 seconds, it's going to fade. So I'm going to go to the timeline, and I'm going to hold my shift key, and it's going to snap to where I left this time indicator. So what I want then is the next picture to start at 5 seconds. Let's get the Azores boats. Another picture I shot. I'm going to crop this one from 5 seconds. It's going to stay till 10 seconds, and by the time we get to 11 seconds, it's going to be gone. And then there's the last image. We're at 10 seconds, and you can see the clock here, hours, minutes, seconds, frames. And the last image is the Terceira Azores photo, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to crop these. Now, I have not added any fades yet, and I think what I also want to do is for both of these, I'm going to hit the S key, and I can just click one of these, type in 106, and it didn't like that. So let's do these individually. I guess they're different sizes. This one's going to start off a little bigger. This one, the Azores boats, is going to come to here. Okay, now these fill the screen, and if I test my video, which I don't really need to do at the moment, let's just scoot that one. Leave it. Okay, now I've got my 3 background images. I'm going to close these all up. The easiest way is to highlight them all and close one of them. And then what I'm going to do is some keyframing. This is similar to keyframing in Flash. I'm going to go to the first layer. Hold my shift key and you'll see it snaps to this place where they overlap. And I'm going to hit T for transparency, even though here it says O for opacity. And what I want to do is I want to click the little stopwatch saying I want to start a value here. And then I'm going to go to the end and I'm just going to drag this to 0. And what happens is AfterEffects is going to calculate that transition. Let's do the same thing here. T for transparency, set a keyframe at 100%, and now I'm going to go and set that to 0. Notice that as soon as I change the value here, the keyframe changes here. Let's test this movie, and I'm going to do what's called a RAM preview, which is over here on the right-hand side. I'm going to click RAM preview, and right now I have it says from current time. Let's turn that off, and it should preview the whole piece. Now, it's not going to start off in real time. It's going to render each frame. Now we should see it in real time. 5 seconds, fade for 1 second, 5 seconds, fade for 1 second. So we've done our first tweens. I'm going to do one other thing here, which is as these fade, I want them to expand. You see this on the Mac screensaver. So let's take this and put S for scale again. I'm going to set a keyframe here, and I want to go to the end, and I'm going to set it to be 130. So what's happening now is this is going to start here, and it's going to go as it fades. Same thing. Let's go here, set the keyframe, and S for scale. Got to set that first keyframe, put the cursor where I want it, and let's go. This one needed to be a little bit bigger. Let's go to 140. So now, if I test that movie, let it render, this green line here is the movie being rendered into RAM memory, into the memory so that it can be played in real time. Now we've got that fade out. Now that's okay, but I think what I'm going to do with these scale ones is I'm going to take this keyframe and move it all the way back. I'm going to take this keyframe and move it all the way back. And then for the final one, I'm going to hit S for scale. I'm going to leave it where it is. And at the end, I'm going to go to 140 like the other one. And so what now is going to happen is the fade is going to happen here. The scaling starts at the beginning and then fades, but they're all moving. And if I just close these all up and then select them all, now you can see how there are multiple keyframes on each one. Here are the opacity keyframes, and here on this line are the fading keyframes. You can move them and drag them and drop them around, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how this background works. It's loading into RAM. Now we should get it in real time. Zoom, fade, zoom, fade. And part of what you want to do with video is keep things moving. If you keep things moving, you keep things interesting. Now, another thing that will turn a mediocre movie into a good movie, probably not in this case, but very often, is to add a soundtrack. Now, my movie's only going to be 15 seconds. My soundtrack's longer, but here's a little rock demo piece. And what I want this to do is fade out at the end. Now, obviously, audio doesn't have an opacity, but it has audio levels. And you can see the waveform here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to 14 seconds. I'm going to set the audio levels. Now, this is confusing if you're not used to audio. 0 is normal volume, not no volume. And then what I'm going to do here is click on the audio panel, and I can drag on the upper right, drag the slider down, or I can do it here. Minus 48 is no volume. And here you can actually see what happened where the volume faded, much like opacity would fade if we were adjusting the transparency. Let's try a quick render. Give this a minute. That was a little fast. Now you've got it in real time. Okay, you get the idea. So we got a little rock and roll happening underneath. And what I want to do next is I want to animate some other objects across this. I'm not going to do all of these, but let's take this star and drag it on top. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it over here. I want this to start at 4 seconds and go across the screen by 9 seconds. So let's start at the beginning, and what we want to do is animate the position. I'm going to say P for position, or just reveal all the properties. I'm now going to go to the end, and I'm going to drag this across, and it's going to make the next keyframe. And if you're observant, you'll notice that we have some Bezier handles on this, so I can actually adjust this, and what you'll see now is this star is going to come across. Now, the other thing I want to do is, it looks weird just floating across. I'm going to click R for rotation, and again, just so you see, all of these properties are visible. So if you don't remember the shortcuts, I'm going to go here, and at the end, I'm going to rotate this -1 time. And what you should see now is as this goes across, it's going to spin. So I've made a tween. That's going across. Let's show a couple of other things, and I think the rest you're going to learn by playing with it. I'm going to add a type layer. Let me go back to the beginning of my timeline. I'm simply going to use the type tool. I'm going to click, I'm going to type demo video. Now I've got my type presets and controls over here. Let's do this, make it a little bit big. And I think what we're going to do is fade this in and have it hover a little bit and disappear. So let's start off. Let's give this 5 seconds. So we can crop this to about 5 seconds. And then what we're going to do is start off with the opacity, which is T for transparency. Let's have this thing start with 0. In about 1 second, it's going to fade to 100. It's going to stay until we get to 4 seconds. I need another keyframe here, so I'm going to click the little diamond here so that it stays, and now it's going to come out. So we have the first part of it, which is the fading in. The next thing is P for position, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to drag it around in a couple of random ways. So that it kind of jitters a little bit in no particular order. And then, of course, it should be faded. And if we play this video, see it rendering into RAM. And our text is hovering and fading. Okay, so that part is done. And of course, as with other programs, if you want, when you're done with these layers, you can lock them so you don't mess them up. Now, the last thing I want to do here is I want to take my television video, and I actually have this little Cheesy Puffs movie that came with an Adobe tutorial. And what I want to do is actually have the television go across the screen. And this is where I'm going to make a new composition. And it really doesn't matter what size it is. I'll crop it later. I think I'm going to make it 10 seconds long. Let's make it 7 seconds long. Okay, I'm going to call this my TV comp. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag in the Cheesy Puffs movie. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move past. It's a longer movie. There we go. We have all of this sort of moving silliness here. Let's start with that. And now as I sweep across, I've got this stuff happening in this box. And then I'm going to take my TV and I'm going to put it on top, right there in the middle. Let's go ahead. The TV's got a transparent background. And now I've got, let's move this up just a little bit. Let's take everything and maybe move that in the left-hand corner. And now what I can do, let's take a look. TV, if I double-click it, it's 474 by 362. It tells us the measurements. So if I come back to my composition, 474 by 362. Let's go to composition settings, 474 by 362, and I should be able to crop this perfectly. Let's just select everything again and put it in there. Okay, perfect. Now we're ready to move, and I have this TV with stuff on it. Let's go back to our original composition, and what I have now is, see this, it was supposed to be TV comp. It's TV comp. I'm going to click rename. That's my TV composition. I'm going to drop the whole composition on top of this as a layer. And it's 7 seconds. Why don't we start this towards the end, somewhere here? And what I'm going to do is come here where it begins. I'd like to make it smaller. Let's scale it. Let's go down in size. And we're going to do something very similar. I think I'll start this on the opposite side, maybe at the bottom. I'm going to Let's just open them up. We're going to do the position. We're going to do the rotation. We'll set some keyframes. We'll go to the end. We will drag the television across. Maybe we can do something kind of annoying with the path for that. And then the rotation is going to rotate one time. So what we get, starting at the beginning, is the star goes across and the TV goes up, and I didn't see, because I rotated it 1 degree. I wanted it to rotate one full rotation, and so let's get rid of this here. Close enough. Okay, so now we have the television set rotating. Obviously, there's a lot more to After Effects than this, but what we've done is we've composited text, video, audio. Let's go ahead and take a look at this movie one time, and then what I'll invite you to do is download all of these assets or use your own and then play with this. So right now we're rendering, calculating all the frames. A big movie can take hours to do depending on how many filters and things you use. Almost done. What was the problem? We needed to turn off the turn off the audio for our TV composition. So you heard the audio tracks clashing. One more time. Okay. That's it for truly annoying After Effects videos, but it should give you the basics of video composition. Download the assets, play around with it, and have a good time. You get the idea of it pretty quickly.